All right. Hello. Good morning. I guess we're still in the morning time. Thank you all so much for taking some time today to join us. We have a tremendous speaker lined up today with Secretary Toland. He does have a hard stop today at noon to get to a couple of other commitments. So we are going to just jump right into things. I am going to first want to thank our sponsors for the year, Complete Construction Service, of course, the City of Shawnee, Gay, and Johnson County Community College. We're so thankful for their commitment to the leadership level of the EDC throughout the year, and also very thankful for our EDC investors, especially as we work hard to support our businesses during the COVID-19 crisis. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our sponsor for today, which is Confluence. Confluence has been a member of our Shawnee Economic Development Council for about 3 years and has provided a lot of guidance, and I know has done a lot of work in the community for years. So I will turn it over to Terry Berkbigler, the principal with Confluence. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ann. I will get things set up here. Okay, we're good to go? Yep. All right, so yeah, as Ann said, good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here. When we originally talked with the group about sponsoring this luncheon, we hoped we'd be together and having some barbecue or something, but instead we'll do this virtually, as we are doing a lot of things these days. You know, I think a couple things coming out of this current crisis we're in. A new buzzword that I hear every day, at least 3 or 4 times, is pivot. So we are pivoting in our economy, we're pivoting in our businesses as individuals, and we're pivoting the way we do meetings like this. And the other one is, I think people are less afraid of video conferences, so maybe that's a good thing. And it is fun to see what everybody has in the backgrounds when they do these meetings. So I am going to get at it. So Confluence is a firm that we're located here in Kansas City, down in the River Market. This is our most of our entire office together this past February. We have our annual meeting. We bring in all of our staff for a fun weekend, and we said, hey, why don't we all stand out in the street and take a picture and hope no cars go by. But we love being here. We've been in the Kansas City market now since 2003, so going on 17 years now. Our home office is in Des Moines, and then we're also in other cities throughout the middle of the country. Most recently, additions in Fargo, North Dakota, and in Chicago. We're made up of 70 team members, 31 licensed landscape architects, and a couple of planners. And that's what we do. We're landscape architecture and urban planning. We're not engineers, we're not architects. We collaborate with a lot of creative folks like that every day on all of our projects. And really, we do work, as Ann mentioned, we've done a lot of work in the community. We do a lot of work for municipalities, for city, state governments, do a lot of work for universities, higher ed. But really, we are diverse. We do a lot of private sector work as well, and work in the hospitality sector. And as most of you are doing, I'm sure, in your businesses, we're trying to figure out what the business will look like in the next year to 5 years, and how what we're doing today may be changing how we design spaces and how we help communities plan for their futures. I don't think anybody has the answers yet, but it's going to be an interesting conversation over the next few years, just to see how our economy has changed by all this. I'm going to just focus on the bottom on this slide. Basically, our philosophy and the approach we take to all of our projects is that people, energy, and ideas are what shape the future of our community. To us, that means that it's not about us. It's not about our egos or our individual team members' points of view. It's about everybody's ideas, and the best ideas can come from anywhere. And the best ideas win, and that's how our projects and our communities and our clients have success over the long term. I'm going to rip through a couple of our projects just to show you that, and then I'm going to turn it over to PJ Novick, to tell you a little bit about a project that you all may be more familiar with. So we work in the municipal sector. This is a civic project at the Art Museum down in Wichita we worked on a few years ago. Great project. It was really a lot of fun, and one of those once in a career opportunities to make a major transformation to a place like that. We do civic plaza spaces here in the metro. This is one up in our Fargo, in downtown Fargo. So working with corporate entities and creating places for people to congregate. A lot of those happen on rooftops. More and more as we're densifying our communities, we're seeing these as real opportunities to create space for people, whether that's a corporate setting or a lot of residential rooftop amenities projects we're working on these days. We've had a lot of success and good work done over at the University of Kansas, Kansas State University, Johnson County Community College here in this metro and in this region, and we do work with universities and colleges across the Midwest. And again, it's a lot about creating those outdoor places that people enjoy, whether they're students or as PJ is going to talk about, park work. So one of the ones we're most proud of recently here is the completion of Lake Olathe Park. And PJ Novick, one of our principals here in Kansas City, led that effort, has been doing work in the metro for a long time. And it's going to take a couple minutes and just give you an update on Wilder Bluff Park.
All right, thanks, Terry. You want to go ahead and we started Wilder Bluff Park earlier this year with Neil Holman in the Parks Department. Here's a site plan of what we've got as soon as that leaf curls up. So the park is approximately 40 acres. It's at 55th and Belmont, so we're just to the west of K7 in western Shawnee. As you come into the park off Belmont, you see we've got a pedestrian access and a vehicular access with a parking lot in that central area. And then we have a park shelter that also has a fireplace in it. We've got a water play element where the kids can climb through a little water coming down rocks and some spray heads. And then immediately adjacent to that, we have a playground area that actually has some overhead play features that actually will take the kids into the existing tree canopy. There, I've got some perspectives of these, but then the rest of the park, as you come back, we've got trails as you see going north, and the grade rises through there. It's kind of a high point on that very northern portion. And it's a beautiful view because up in the top there on the northern portion of our site is a really well-established prairie planting. It's just beautiful up there. And then our neighbor to the north also has his area planted in native grasses, and it's just a beautiful view to have that right within the city. Terry, if you want to go to the next one. We got a series. There it is. So we got a series of perspectives. So this is what the user will see as you enter the park. Obviously, we've got some limestone on either side, hence the Wilder Bluff. So it's like you're driving through a escarpment of limestone. You can see then in the background, the shelter there. And then the next slide will show us a little more, Terry. It's really pulling.
It's clicked. It's good on my end.
Yeah, it's not here yet.
Can you use hand puppets?
Yeah, there we go. So here's as you're exiting your car, coming up to the park shelters, you can see underneath the shelter, you can see the fireplace back there, and then there are restrooms associated with the shelter. And it's a series. It's wooden with some metal structures, and then some native Kansas limestone that you'll see throughout the park. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I'm clicking them, just letting them catch up.
And the next slide will show us, as we'll be zooming in on the water play area, which we're really excited about with that. As you can see here, there's water that comes out of some rocks, and it forms basically two small runnels that the kids can walk through and splash through. And then in addition to that, there's in-ground spray heads that the kids will be able to activate with a push button, and then also water coming out of the central rock. So it's a fully cleansed system. So it's we're not wasting water, we're cleaning it and returning it back to play. As you can see, it's very creative space for for kids of all ages. Then this is another view coming up. We're a little higher now. We're looking the opposite way. So I'm looking south. And as you can see here, we've got the playground that comes down from the water feature. Then you see the towers that the kids climb up into and then cross over the pedestrian path and then into the tree canopy, where they will then take a slide back down to the ground. Then in the background there, you see the large kind of a central lawn feature, just a gathering spot. Here, I think we've got one more.
Yep. It's coming.
The final slide is just going to be an overall view. Looking back, we'll be looking to the north. You can see here, so there's kind of the grand lawn with the parking up to the upper left and directly atop, and the large shelter and the fireplace, as this really forms a beautiful space for maybe a special event. Lots of walking paths and trails for the kids to ride on, and just I think will be a great addition to the Shawnee Park system. And it's been great working with Neil and his department. We're currently just working on construction documents. We anticipate the contractor starting work probably about August, and we'll have a spring opening. So that's it, Terry. Great.
Well, I will let Dustin or whoever pull up the rest if there is more of a presentation. But appreciate the opportunity to sponsor this event today, and you know, appreciate the opportunity to introduce today's speaker. David Toland is the Secretary of the Kansas Department of Commerce. Since being appointed by Governor Kelly in January, Secretary Toland has overseen sweeping changes within the state's leading economic development agency. Under his leadership, the department is conducting a new economic development strategic planning process for the state that will replace the 1986 Redwood-Crider report. Toland has also aggressively worked to rebuild the Business and Community Development Division of the Department of Commerce, filling positions that have remained vacant for several years and reestablishing the state's presence in key domestic and international markets. He also led negotiations on behalf of Governor Kelly that resulted in the end of the so-called border war that has gone on between Kansas and Missouri for nearly a decade. Prior to joining the team at Commerce, Secretary Toland was the first CEO of Thrive Allen County, a nonprofit coalition that works to improve quality of life and economic conditions in Allen County, Kansas. A seventh-generation Allen Countyan, Toland oversaw the organization in its efforts toward improving healthcare access, healthy lifestyles, and economic development in the small rural Kansas County. Prior to his return to his hometown, Toland worked as an appointee of the Washington, D.C. Mayor Anthony Williams, holding key leadership positions in the D.C. Economic Development and Planning offices. So welcome, Secretary Toland.
Well, thank you very much, Terry. And I want to particularly thank Confluence as a sponsor and all the other sponsors that have made today possible. And especially want to give a shout out to Ann for making this invitation to me to speak to the EDC and all the members about what's going on at the state level as it relates to our COVID response. And hopefully we're gonna have some time to take some questions here. I really liked the point in the presentation about the best ideas win. And that's very much what we're working to formulate here, those best ideas which are gonna set Kansas ahead of other states as we recover from this pandemic. Let me start though, I like to get bad news out of the way first off. And so let's talk about where we are at the moment when we've got about 10 weeks behind us of COVID and the wreckage that it's leaving on our economy. So since March 14th, there have been about 230,000 new unemployment claims in the state of Kansas. In Johnson County alone, we've seen over 41,000 unemployment claims. If you look at different sectors across the state, some have been hit harder than others, but everybody has been impacted in one form or another. To take manufacturing as an example, so there were 166,000 manufacturing jobs in the state in February. And we have lost over 60,000 of those 166,000 in the last 10 weeks. So we estimate that there's an unemployment rate in the manufacturing sector of over 30% right now. That's statewide. You look at hospitality, same situation. In that case, over 37,000 jobs have been lost in restaurants, bars, lodging, and event centers. And again, that's a statewide situation, but there have been a lot of those jobs that have been impacted in Johnson County, in Shawnee, and we'll talk a little more about that context in a minute. And then, you know, even professional services, which is a sector that, you know, typically has some immunity in downturns. We've seen, you know, we're at about an unemployment rate of 9 to 10% right now, with about 7,000 jobs lost in professional services in the state. So everybody's been hit in one form or another, and the ripple effects that this has had across our economy are significant. But let me pivot to use the term that's in vogue today. Let me pivot a little bit to talk about Johnson County and some positives. So Johnson County is better positioned than most counties in the state, nearly all counties in the state, because of the relative diversification of its economy. So we've got finance jobs, we've got professional services, we've got wholesale, we've got real estate, we've got logistics. This really is helpful as we look at what the future looks like and how the recovery occurs in Johnson County. Just to compare to South Central Kansas and Sedgwick County, Wichita. So in the Wichita market, you have one of the highest concentrations of manufacturing jobs per capita anywhere in the United States. Specifically with aviation, Wichita today is as concentrated in the aviation sector as Detroit was concentrated in the automotive sector in 1980. And so very, very heavy concentration of manufacturing jobs broadly and aviation specifically. It is not as nearly as diverse as the economy in Johnson County, which really is spread across a lot of different sectors. And so that's going to position Johnson County to, we think, recover faster and more fully in the months and years to come. So that's some good news. Let me switch over to Department of Commerce and what we've got going on at the state level. So we've done two things in the broadest sense. So the first bucket of work has been the immediate COVID response. And what we've done is switch many of our staff here at Commerce from their typical roles, you know, overseeing incentive programs and the like, you know, as our field reps out in the state and so forth. We've switched them to providing direct service, technical assistance to businesses who are figuring out how do they navigate these uncharted waters with COVID. And so that's meant everything from setting up an online chat feature at kansascommerce.gov, where folks can go to ask questions about the PPP program or the EIDL program, or ask questions about the governor's reopening plan and the like. But it's also meant that we've taken staff and worked on finding immediate responses to address specific sector challenges. So talking again about hospitality, on March 20th, Governor Kelly and I announced a program called HIRE, which stands for the Hospitality Industry Relief Emergency Fund. So the HIRE Fund has been set up to respond to the first job losses that occurred from COVID, which were in the hospitality sector. And so what we did is take $5 million from the state's job creation fund. And that's a pot of money that we typically use to recruit businesses into the state. When we're competing with other states to win a project, often what can put us over the top is this cash fund, JCF. So in this case, what we did is use that fund for retention of existing businesses, in this case, hospitality businesses. And so over the course of 6 days, we went from the announcement of this program to getting $5 million out the door to 346 businesses across the state. We did this in partnership with Network Kansas, which had a network established statewide to be able to underwrite these loans and do all the due diligence on the front end. And those folks worked around the clock to make those evaluations, make the awards, and get the money into bank accounts so that we could get those businesses the working capital, the liquidity they needed at a critical time so they can survive. So we're really happy about that. That's reflective of a lot of other very rapid shifts that we've made at the Department of Commerce in response to COVID. You know, there have been some really, I think, exciting changes in our culture as an agency that were already happening prior to COVID, but COVID has really accelerated a lot of this, where we are focused on moving faster, being more responsive, and making sure that we are going where the needs are, not just trying to make the world adapt to us. We are adapting to what it is that businesses need in order to get through this. So I'm very pleased about our team that has pivoted. But what's important is also to stress that we have our business recruitment team for the state, and I have not had them pivot. Instead, we have directed them to just work harder and faster on the recruitment front. And so when I talk about our recruiters, what I'm referring to specifically is the team that we have of salespeople for the state of Kansas, for lack of a better word, that exist in markets around the country. So we've got Jose Romano, who is in New York City, who represents Kansas on the East Coast. We've got a recruiter in Chicago, who is in the Great Lakes region for us. We've got a recruiter on the West Coast in Southern California. We've got Alicia Hutchings, who is in the Dallas office and is the head of our business recruitment team. And then we've got Barb Hake in the Kansas City region, and Cheng Lu, who is in Springfield, Missouri, who handles the South Central states. Just to give you a little context, when I took over last January, in January of 2019, we only had 3 of those markets filled. We had Alicia in Dallas, we had Barb in Kansas City, and then we had a representative in Chicago. So we have gotten our team entirely rebuilt, and we've stocked that team with really great talent. I'm proud of the hiring we've been able to do, and it really is a top-notch crew. So why does that matter? It matters because a year ago, from March 1 to May 1, our business recruitment team opened 13 new economic development projects. In the same period this year, we opened 36. So we went from 13 to 36. And of course, this year we're talking about a period where COVID was sweeping across the country and resulting in a lot of businesses contracting and putting decisions on hold. So we have really focused on the business recruitment team on those businesses which are not contracting, which see opportunities in response to COVID, and are ready to run and harvest those opportunities. So we're talking about businesses we're talking about logistics, we're talking about e-commerce, we're talking about companies that make PPE, personal protective equipment, and other critical needs items, healthcare. You know, there are opportunities right now, and our business recruitment team is focused like a laser on going after those opportunities. And so I'm really proud of the work that's going on there. You know, if we were to land all of these 36 projects that we've opened, we're talking about roughly $500 million in new capital investment and over 7,000 new jobs. Now, of course, we won't have 100% success, but we feel very good about many of these projects that we've opened and how the state is positioned to win these competitions. And 6 of these projects are specifically targeted to Johnson County locations. And so that's really good news. So more to come, but we want you to know that as a department, we're working to move the speed of business, not at the speed of government. And I'm proud of our team for both pivoting and staying focused on our core work of recruiting new businesses to the state and supporting the businesses that are here. Let me give you some updates at the federal level on the CARES Act and money that has flowed to the state. So under the CARES Act, $1.25 billion was allocated to the state of Kansas to support our COVID response. Included in that $1.25 billion was about 115 million, which was earmarked for Johnson County, and roughly 100 million that was earmarked for Sedgwick County. Those are the two counties in the state that have a population of over 500,000. And so those were called out specifically both for Kansas and for states across the country. That left roughly $1 billion, which has gone to the state and must be expended by December 31st of this year for COVID responses. And so Governor Kelly announced the day before yesterday her appointments to the task force, which is called SPARK, which is going to oversee the administration of these dollars across the state over the next 7 months. And she's also established the Recovery Office, which is headed by Cheryl Harrison Lee, who most recently was the city manager in Gardner, but prior to that had a long career in the state of Florida in local government management. So Cheryl Harrison Lee is going to be the head, the executive director of the Recovery Office, and she'll be working with this task force of, I believe it's 21 business and community leaders from across the state. I'll be serving on that as well as we work to administer these dollars and make sure that we do it in ways which make thoughtful investments that will, we hope, position the state to come out of COVID in a fashion that is stronger than where we were before. We also have to make sure, though, that these dollars are invested responsibly and transparently. And so there's a lot of work going into making sure that we set up the systems and processes that provide that transparency and accountability. So the CARES Act also included huge allocations for 2 loan programs. PPP has gotten most of the attention because that is a forgivable loan that has good terms. And in the state of Kansas, there have been over 74,000 PPP loans awarded over the last 6 or 7 weeks. So roughly 29% of the small businesses in the state of Kansas have been awarded PPP loans. The average loan size in the state is about $124,000, and the state has gotten, the businesses in our state have gotten more than $9 billion worth of loans. So that is a huge injection of equity into of liquidity into the Kansas economy and into these small businesses that desperately need it. And I have really made a point of thanking our banking community, which has worked really hard to get their customers in line for the PPP program early on, and they've literally worked around the clock to get these applications in. It was really intense in that first round in particular, and we had folks work 18 hours on Easter Sunday and the like to try and get as many in as quickly as possible. They ran out of money on the first round in 13 days. They have not yet run out of money on this second round, but we are encouraging those businesses which think they might need PPP to make application now. They will run out of money at some point, and we're probably getting close to that. So if you've been thinking about it, if you've been on the fence about what to do, but you think you might need it, go see your lender and talk it through and move swiftly to get application made. The EIDL loan program, which stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loans, We've also seen with that about 21,000 loans approved. The terms are not as generous with EIDL loans. These are not forgivable loans with the exception of the first $10,000. But we've seen about $70 million that has come into the state to support our state small businesses. And these loans will have to be repaid. I believe the interest rate for businesses is 4 3/4, and for nonprofits is 3 3/4. So they are still accepting applications for EIDL as with PPP. But again, if you've been thinking about it and have not yet made application, you need to, we really encourage you to move swiftly. So switching back to purely the state level, I get a lot of questions from folks about what are we hearing from site selectors, site consultants around the country as our recruiters are talking to them and other staff here at Commerce. And so let me give you some highlights. You know, the question is, when are things going to return to normal with site consultants? When are we going to start to see visits again? And short answer is we don't really know. We know that there is a lot of pent up demand and that folks want to travel, but in many cases that just isn't happening yet. We have seen more utilization of virtual platforms like this, and I think that's going to increase, you know, as I think Terry said earlier, maybe it was Ann, you know, there's a much better comfort level with platforms like Zoom, and we're seeing a lot more use of that, and that includes with site consultants. But I think we all know a virtual tour of real estate is just not the same as getting out there and kicking around in the dirt. So we're hopeful that things will return to some sort of new normal this summer so that we can get a lot of these visits done. And I would also add that the reason I've got to be done at 12 noon today is that I'm getting on a flight at 2 o'clock to go to Phoenix to work a recruitment project. And this will be my first time in an airport in I don't know, 10 or 11 weeks since the end of February. And, you know, to me, I think it's time. And so going to go ahead and get on that plane, wear gloves, wear a mask, and have a lot of hand sanitizer. But I think it's time, at least for me, and this is a really ripe opportunity for the state. And so we're going to go out and get it. And I'm being met by our West Coast rep, who's going to hook up with me tonight in the market where we are going, and hopeful we can bring some jobs and investment back to the state. So our position at Commerce is that we got to get back out on the road, but we got to do it safely. And so that's what you'll, I think, continue to see. So we're all working to find that new normal, and it's going to take a while for things to settle out, but the governor's reopening plan, which is now in, you know, we're entering phase 2, is, you know, we think has been a good balance between making sure that we are first addressing the public health crisis so that we don't make the economic crisis worse. If you look at our data as a state, the rate of growth overall, if you take out the spikes that we've seen in the meatpacking plants in Southwest Kansas, our rate of growth in Kansas has been slower than some of the states around us, which did not shut down as swiftly as we did, and were not as aggressive early on about making sure that we stop the spread of COVID. So that to me is a representation of what we think, you know, the facts show that it was the right move to close things down early and to have a responsible reopening, which is what we're doing now, of businesses in the state. I think we're going to be in a lot better shape than those states around us, which have made different decisions and which are seeing their rate of new COVID cases grow dramatically at dramatically higher rates than what we are seeing in Kansas. So I think that's really good news. And, we've just got to be vigilant to make sure we do this right and we see it through the summer. I think I will stop there so that we can have time for questions. And you'll probably see during Q&A time that on a lot of things, my answer is going to be, I don't know yet. And I hate saying that, but it's true. There's a lot that we don't know about what the future looks like. And so I just try to be straightforward in answering questions. It's not a dodge. It's just, I don't have a crystal ball about what July looks like or what happens in October or, if and when there's going to be a second wave. So, but I would just, I guess, have that disclaimer up front that, we're doing our best to be on top of everything that we, all the data that we should know right now and that we can know right now. And if there's something that you ask, which is a technical question, maybe it's about unemployment or something like that, if we don't have the answer, I will get that question answered, send it to Ann and ask her to send it out to all the membership. So happy to take Q&A.
That's great. Secretary Toland, thank you so much. It's always so interesting to hear all the things that are going on in Kansas. I know we can get a little head down on what's happening in our own community. And I do just want to compliment you on your hiring choices. As you know, we were out, I think probably your last trip, my last trip, out east with Jose, and I'm working on a project with Peter, and hopefully we'll have a good announcement on that one this summer. So great team. So it's great to have all those professionals with a lot of contacts working on our behalf. So we have a couple of questions in the chat box and encourage anybody else to continue to ask. But I am wondering, how do you think all of this that we've really just all that we've gone to, how will that affect the framework of Kansas that you've been working on? I know I've been a part of many of those meetings, and if you're seeing there's opportunities for us to pivot in that way, and there's other things that we need to be looking at, or do you think this just reinforces some of the good and the bad that we've been seeing through the meetings and hearing in the community?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ann. So the Kansas Framework for Growth process is the state's new economic development, or will be the state's new economic development strategic plan. As Terry mentioned in my bio, this is the first time the state of Kansas has undertaken a strategic planning process for economic development since 1986. And so getting this plan done was one of our first priorities, one of the governor's first priorities. And we went to work starting last January to lay the groundwork for this, and we kicked it off last fall and have worked through the winter. And at this point, our plan was that we would be taking the draft plan out on the road around the state to vet it with businesses, with communities, with EDCs, chambers, and make sure that we've got the right kind of construct for how we get the Kansas economy back to where we were once upon a time, which was where we punched above our weight, where, we were a smaller Midwestern state, but we did really, really well. And that's particularly true in Johnson County, which, is the key growth engine of the state's economy. So COVID has caused us to change how we're going to do that vetting process. So we do have the draft plan close to done, essentially done, so that it can go out. And so we're going to have a virtual format for this. And we'll be doing this through our local economic development partners around the state, where we use our consulting team. So we hired McKinsey & Company as our lead consultants, along with Brookings. And we will present this outline of the framework to folks, ask them to react, let us know if we have the right tracks, the wrong tracks, if our strategies need to be tweaked. And our goal is to finish this up in late July, early August. So we are marching ahead with the framework. I'd like to add a couple things on that. So, Kansas is going to be so much better off. And in this case, I think we just got lucky. We're going to be a lot better off in our COVID recovery, I think, because this plan is brand new, it's still fresh, and we can still modify it in ways to reflect the new context that we're in because of COVID. Now, luckily, much of what we're seeing or what we predict the world will look like post-COVID lines up really well with where we already were in our draft plan. So, we see in that plan huge opportunities for the state in logistics and e-commerce, and that's absolutely true in a COVID and post-COVID world. We see big opportunities in biotech and in kind of getting us back into the life sciences, and that's also going to be critically important. We see opportunities in the framework for diversification of manufacturing. And so if you look at a lot of what's been happening in the state over the last 8 weeks, 10 weeks, with manufacturers that have shifted production from, maybe they were making boat seats and now they're making surgical gowns with that same team. Or, in aviation, there's, it's public information, Spirit Aerosystems in Wichita, rather than making fuselages for 737s, or in addition to making fuselages for 737s, they have shifted 800 people who would have otherwise been laid off over to making ventilators. And so we've got a California company that was seeking additional capacity so that they could meet their contractual obligations to the feds. So the feds suddenly needed ventilators. And so they got a contract with this company in California. They couldn't meet the demand on their own. And so they partnered with Spirit. And so now we got 800 people in Wichita building ventilators. And this company has a foothold in the state. We've seen the distilleries that are making hand sanitizers and so forth. So the point is that diversification of our manufacturing operations in the state is really important. Manufacturing 4.0 is critically important. All of this was foreseen in the framework for growth, though we had no idea that a pandemic would accelerate the process on a lot of this. We had planned that the framework would probably not actually be funded in any way until probably July 1 of next year. And I think we will probably start with implementing the plan actually this fall. So we're moving this up dramatically, and we're just really lucky that it wasn't good practice to go 34 years without doing an economic development strategic plan. But the fact that we started it last year and we were just getting close to finishing as COVID hit leaves us in a really good place as we go forward.
Absolutely. I have a couple questions here, but one more that I have. I know being some of those discussions, entrepreneurship and our ability to foster entrepreneurs was something that we saw as a real opportunity to grow. I think we all know that historically, when our economy faces some shakeups like we have, after the recession and other points in time, that we see a real resurgence of innovation and entrepreneurship. I'm hopeful that the plan will include some ways that we can help foster and grow that more. Do you foresee the state dedicating more resources to help us grow our entrepreneurs in our local communities?
Yeah, there's a huge part of the framework for growth that is focused on innovation and entrepreneurship. And this is, about, it's about individual entrepreneurs. It's about helping companies have the tools so that they are adaptable and flexible and can innovate. It's about our universities and making sure that we are commercializing the research that comes out of our universities and using it to create jobs in Kansas. And as part of that, we've got to make sure that we are retaining our educated young people that at this point are leaving the state in droves, frankly, and have been for a long time. We've got to turn that around and keep our young people in the state. because they are the future of Kansas business. And it's certainly also about giving our partners like ECJC in Johnson County, the folks that are working with entrepreneurs at the early stages, the tools they need, the support they need to get that done. So, of course, the question is always, how are we going to pay for this?
Right.
And we're hoping that there will be federal dollars that will help us supercharge a lot of these plans around entrepreneurship and innovation, so that we can, make some really smart investments this fall that will yield dividends for the state for years to come.
Absolutely. So there's a question on, what do you think the lessons have that we've learned here in Kansas now that we are 10 weeks into this COVID, as far as it relates to our response to the pandemic?
Well, so I guess I would start by saying that as an administration, Kelly administration is very much focused on learning and making sure that we are evaluating data, that we are evaluating what we do, so that we can continuously enhance our response and do it better. With COVID, this came sort of from out of nowhere. With this first wave, it happened rapidly. The nation shut down rapidly. The state shut down rapidly, and we aren't yet reopened in fully in any of those contexts. There are lessons that you learn at any point with something like that, and I think what's good is that as an administration that has a culture that really focuses on data and learning those lessons, I think we're going to be better off as a state if and when a second wave of COVID comes this fall, and so or later. At some point, something is likely to happen again, and so I think what we've learned in part is that by being swift in our response, by acting based on science, by evaluating lessons from the past, I think particularly the 1918 Spanish flu and the evaluations that have been done of cities that at that time shut down quickly and thoroughly versus those that did not. The cities that shut down early and got things under control on the health front saw their economies rebound much faster than the places that didn't. And so that use of data from the past and medical data and science today, I think has left us in a better place than we would be if we were just going on the fly. So I would also add that I don't think we know all the lessons yet. There's more that we learn every day, and I'm hopeful that we'll have a little bit of a breather this summer where we can, kind of fully do a postmortem or autopsy of what went well, what can we improve on, how can we make sure that we've got the best coordinated response that balances public health with the needs of the economy.
Absolutely. All right, I have one more question for you, and then we'll send you on your way to go bring back a big win for the state of Kansas. So Tammy asked, while there has been $9 billion in loans to small businesses, how much has been lost? Folks are concerned they can't guarantee repayment.
Yeah, I don't have a figure on how much has been lost. We've got unemployment figures and so forth, but it's an enormous number that's certainly much larger than $9 billion. That said, on the question of repayment, the guidance continues to evolve from SBA. So the rules that they had, or the interpretation of the rules that first came out, seems to be shifting somewhat. to be more lenient to businesses that aren't going to be able to maintain that 75% threshold that's within PPP. So what I would really encourage everybody to do is two things. First, stay in close contact with your lender, and you know, make sure that you're getting their latest guidance as they get it from SBA. Second thing I would encourage, and you know, you should start first with your lender, but also feel free to reach out to us at kansascommerce.gov on our online chat feature. We have trained up a whole bunch of staff in the mechanics of PPP and EIDL and a lot of other things. And they stay pretty close to, you know, they've got their ear to the ground at all times. And we have a good relationship with Wayne Bell and the folks in the SBA district office in Wichita. And we've been able to leverage those close relationships to get good information quickly about what's going on. And so I would just say the sands are always shifting as it relates to PPP. And, you know, so just always stay tuned to where things are, because could be better tomorrow than it is today. I suppose it could be worse as well. But the trend that we have seen is that they seem to be establishing processes for forgiveness that didn't exist before, and they've been somewhat more lenient.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for that detailed response. Once again, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're so busy. Love hearing about all the great things that are happening in Kansas. And I feel like despite where we're at today with COVID, that the future is very bright under your leadership here for our state. So we wish you well. Tell Peter I said hello. And Mary Taylor says hello. And she says to go wash your hands. Can't stop being a mom.
I will definitely do that. And yeah, you know, we're really grateful for our partnership with Shawnee Chamber, with the EDC. You know, it is a great relationship, and it's only through those partnerships that we get work done, that we can close these projects, bring them to the state. And I'm looking forward to hopefully sticking a gold shovel in the ground with you, Ann, later on this year. So, but thanks very much for having me on. Thanks to all the members that are on the call today. Thanks to Terry and the folks at Confluence and all the other sponsors for making today possible. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, I'm going to just go over, I can get my screen shared here, some updates on our pipeline and projects that we are working on. Go the right way. First, I do want to think we have had 2 members join in the last couple of months, ACS and Stantec. And so thank you very much to your commitment to Shawnee EDC and the growth of our community. We appreciate your investment in us and hope that you find it worthy, and hope we can get you out in front of the rest of our amazing members and make some great in real life connections. So briefly, I just want to go over kind of where we are with our pipeline. As Secretary Toland mentioned, despite the current health situation, we still remain very active. We have about 39, and actually I was counting up, there might be a few projects that we're managing that didn't make it into our tracker. So we're probably hovering somewhere north of 40 projects that we are managing right now, and close to about 4,000 jobs is represented in those projects, and about $650 million. So the pipeline is healthy. We have had the opportunity to do some virtual tours to several local and regional developers on much interest out there on the industrial land, and also still interest from multifamily developers. So those are kind of the things that we've seen a lot of in the last 10 weeks that we've been working from home as well. This is a couple of our current projects, the openings, Neiman Road. I heard yesterday from the city manager, they are working on getting it striped, and the cones should be gone soon. So if you have not been down Neiman Road, lots of changes, and we'll see some restaurants opening and over there, including McLean's Market. I think we're all excited for that. Drastic measures. Pathlight Brewery is there at 75th and Neiman, is opening soon. They're already in their brewing. And then Incredible Pizza Company. So few projects under construction if you're driving around town. Still out there building the building one for the Heartland Logistics Park. The Kevin Tuvesing's project there in downtown Shawnee, 6016 Apartments is under construction, as well as Haas and Brown. We'll see some groundbreak for the Arvis Bank project, and then Shear Products continues their construction there at Shawnee Mission and Woodland. And then we hope to have some announcements soon. Office project out at Shawnee Crossings, that's 130 jobs. They're in the finance tech world, Fortune 500 company. And Project Forest, another one of the projects we're working with the Department of Commerce on. It's an expansion and could bring as many as 300 full-time jobs. So this is just a snapshot of a few of the projects that we are working on. And Project Polaris is worth noting, another project I'm working with the West Coast rep from KDOT on. We have made it from, I think there were initially 30 communities in the hunt for this, and we are now down to the final 4. So Kansas did see a final 4, at least in Shawnee, and so we have put together what we think is a great offer for them, and I hope that we will be sticking a shovel in the ground for this project very soon as well. But you can read there the others, and happy to take any questions or talk more in detail on that. I do want you to know that we are going to be sticking a couple shovels in the ground on June 23rd, 1:30. The Heartland Logistics Park groundbreaking. This was a reschedule from a date that we had set in April, but we are so excited that at this point in our world that we have the opportunity to put forth a first-class industrial park. Again, that is an asset class that we see growing. A lot of the brokers that we're talking to see the onshoring of some of manufacturing coming back, and then of course just warehousing and distribution. Our central location certainly leads us towards that. So we will see hopefully everybody face to face at that point on June 23rd. We will be sending out more details, so stay tuned for that as well. I did want to just give you a little bit of update on where we are on our events and marketing. Again, like as we all know, I mean, face-to-face things that we love to do and love to get out and shake hands and give hugs and see each other. We're just still taking, a little bit of a break on that, and hope to be back up at it sometime in August. But our Royals Day, we are rescheduling that into 2021. And our business awards, which is a big event for the EDC, we have rescheduled that for October. Hopefully our sporting clay and our trivia night continue on. Those are important fundraisers, as well as great networking opportunities for the EDC and the chamber. So please put those on your calendar. We would love to see you. Both the sporting clay and the trivia night are different but very fun events. And then we hope to also be getting out consultant trips. We have one scheduled with the Department of Commerce, which is the Team Kansas, that was supposed to actually be 2 weeks from now. And I think they're looking at maybe the beginning of August, so no date yet. But we hope to be back out there meeting across the country with businesses and site consultants and telling them the great things that Shawnee has going on. And that kind of wraps it. I don't know if there's any questions, maybe a few. Yep. So if there is anything that you have questions on regarding projects in Shawnee, I would love to chat with you on the phone or via Zoom, or maybe we'll be back to actually sitting down in a coffee shop soon. So I thank you all so much for your continued support of Shawnee through the Economic Development Council and through the Shawnee Chamber. I hope you're all well, can enjoy a little bit of fun this weekend, and hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.